it's not the weapon, it's the regime. That's the problem here. Uh, and that regime, which is the greatest state sponsor of terrorism in the world and has attacked its neighbors and is supporting terrorist proxies all over the region, that regime cannot have nuclear weapons. If the Japanese want to build a nuclear weapon, I don't lose sleep over it. That regime in Iran is too dangerous.
Well, let's now speak with Elliot Abrams, who served as special representative for Iran in the first Trump administration. Before that, he was Deputy National Security Advisor to George W. Bush, where he supervised American policy in the Middle East for the White House. Elliot, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to do it.
So, tell us your reaction to this attack on Iran, and tell us about the damage you think it has done to Iranian nuclear capability.
Well, I think that last question is a very important question, and the answer is unclear. That is, they seem to have done an awful lot of damage to Natanz, and of course, the strikes are continuing. I don't think they've attacked Fordo, which is the one that's buried deepest underground. And that one may survive. A lot of these strikes seem to be at military targets other than the nuclear targets. For example, ballistic missiles, trying to make sure that Iran can't get those off the ground to hit Israel. It is interesting, I think, that when the negotiations began, President Trump said, Iran's got to come to an agreement in 60 days. And yesterday was the 61st day. So the Israelis waited those 60 days, and then they struck. It looks like it's okay with President Trump.
Yes, I mean, it certainly looks like from what he's put on social media that he is sort of supportive of this and saying that, if Iran doesn't make a deal, more will come. Does that mean that the Americans would actively assist Israel in terms of further strikes, do you think?
I don't think. I think President Trump doesn't want to do that. He has said that American forces would help defend Israel, for example, shooting down drones or missiles heading for Israel. I don't think he will attack Iran at all, unless the Iranians make an almost unbelievable mistake, which they threatened to do, which is to attack American bases in the Middle East. If they kill Americans, they're cornering Trump, and he will strike Iran. I think they know that, and they know it threatens the regime. So I don't think they'll do that, and I don't think the United States will end up attacking Iran.
And what about how Russia could play into this? I was just reporting to the end of my last hour that it's been reported that a Russian politician had said, Iran has really backed us with Ukraine and, indicated that Russia would be prepared to back Iran. How are you worried, are you, that this could sort of escalate into something much bigger than a regional war?
I don't think that's going to happen. I'm really not worried about it. I think that these strikes will go on for several more days into next week. Then they'll stop. It won't spread because nobody else wants to get in the middle of this. I mean, in a way, it's a mistake even to call it a war. It's an exchange of strikes between Israel and Iran. And like the last round of strikes, this happened, last year? It didn't spread.
So do you think this is, so you sound quite confident that this is not going to escalate. What is this dance that happens then? Is this something where, do you think we are just going to see for the future where, Iran will attack Israel, Israel will attack Iran? It doesn't maybe escalate, but this just continues at this sort of, not a low level, but this contained level?
I think it depends on the Iranian nuclear program. I mean, President Trump in his statements today basically said, let's get back to the table. I told Iran, you've got to negotiate this. The way out for you is negotiation. Do it. He said, and I'm not using his exact words, but and they wouldn't come to an agreement. And as he put it, there were a lot of hardliners on the Iranian side, and a lot of them, he said, are now dead. He wants to go back to the table. he still wants an agreement with Iran, but they would have to give up their nuclear program, not peaceful nuclear energy, but any kind of nuclear weapons program entirely.
Okay.
I don't think the Ayatollah is going to be ready to do that right now. I think from the Iranian point of view, they cannot show weakness. And I think their view would be going right back to the table now would be a show of weakness.
And, you mentioned about how Trump wants a deal and wants to get these talks back on track. But, there was a nuclear deal and Donald Trump, withdrew from that nuclear deal back in 2018. Was that a mistake on Donald Trump's part when you look back on it now?
I think he would say no, and I would say no. It was a bad deal. It was a 15-year deal, and then it was over. So in 2030, it would have been completely finished, and Iran would have been free to do anything it wanted in terms of building nuclear weapons, missiles, and so on. And Trump thought that's just a bad deal. That doesn't solve the problem. And he wanted to negotiate what he thought was a better deal. The purpose of the so-called maximum pressure campaign in his first term was not to overthrow the regime. It was to force them into a deal. And I think he'd still like to do that.
And final question to you, Elliot. Do you think that Israel has nuclear weapons or is building a nuclear capability?
Well, that's certainly what all the press reports are, that Israel has nuclear weapons. It is interesting, though, that if that's true, it's had them for, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and it has not led any of the Arab states to feel threatened and to try to build a nuclear capability except Saddam Hussein at one point.
So if they have got nuclear weapons, is it okay for Israel to have nuclear weapons, but it's not okay for Iran to have nuclear weapons?
Well, sure. And I would say that because you're sitting there in London. Is it okay for the United Kingdom to have nuclear weapons when Germany doesn't have nuclear weapons? It's not the weapon, it's the regime. That's the problem here. And that regime, which is the greatest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and has attacked its neighbors, and is supporting terrorist proxies all over the region, that regime cannot have nuclear weapons. If the Japanese want to build a nuclear weapon, I don't lose sleep over it. That regime in Iran is too dangerous.